Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to put forward a claim so bold that your rational mind will want to flinch away from it immediately. A claim that, on the surface, sounds like the kind of thing people say when they're selling something, or comforting someone, or reaching for words bigger than they can actually hold up. But I'm not saying this loosely. I'm saying it with the full weight of what I know to be true. If you can think it, you can have it. Not a portion of it. Not the modest, reasonable slice your current circumstances seem to allow. All of it. The entire scope of whatever you're genuinely capable of conceiving. And I want you to notice your own reaction to that sentence. Because somewhere inside you, right now, a voice is already objecting. That can't be right. There are things I think about that I'll never actually have. There are dreams simply out of my reach. There are desires that belong to other people. People with advantages I don't have. Born into circumstances I wasn't. That voice feels like wisdom. It feels like the mature, grounded, realistic acknowledgement of life's hard edges. But tonight, I'm going to show you that voice is wrong. Not slightly wrong, not partially wrong. Fundamentally, completely, demonstrably wrong. And I'm going to show you why the simple ability to think something is no accident, no coincidence, no cruel taunt from a universe that lets you picture what you can never actually hold. It's an invitation. In the deepest possible sense, it's a promise. The very fact that you can conceive of it is proof that it already belongs to you. Let's start from the ground up, because everything tonight rests on one single understanding about what a thought actually is. Most people believe thoughts are reflections, that the mind works like a mirror, passively registering a world that already exists independently of it. You see a tree, you think tree. You experience your circumstances, and your thoughts just report back on them. Under this view, thought comes after reality. Reality is the cause. Thought is only the effect, a kind of internal commentary running alongside a world that doesn't need it to exist. And if that were true, the objecting voice would be right. Your thoughts about a bigger life would be nothing but fantasy, idle commentary on a reality already decided without your input. Wishful static, the mind entertaining itself with pictures of things it can never reach. But that's not true. It's the exact reverse of the truth. Thought isn't a reflection of reality. Thought is the raw material of reality. It's not commentary that arrives after the world is built. It's the substance the world gets built out of. Every object, every circumstance, every condition that has ever existed in human experience began as a thought before it ever became a thing. The thought is the cause. The thing is the effect. The inner conception always comes before the outer manifestation. In every single case, without a single exception, across the entire history of human creation. Look around wherever you're sitting right now. Every manufactured object in your field of vision existed first as a thought inside somebody's mind. The chair, the lamp, the building, the device carrying my voice to you right now. None of it leapt into existence out of nothing. Each thing was first conceived, thought into being in the invisible realm of mind, before it was ever built in the visible realm of matter. And whatever's true of objects is equally true of circumstances, of relationships, of wealth, of health, of the entire architecture holding up a human life. Every condition you've ever lived through was first a thought, yours or someone else's, held with enough consistency and enough feeling that it crossed the bridge from the inner world into the outer one. So when you picture the life you want, you're not indulging in idle fantasy. You're performing the first, most essential act in the entire process of creation. You're conceiving. You're working directly with the very substance all reality gets fashioned from. The thought isn't separate from the having. The thought is the beginning of the having. Now I want to face the objection head on, because it deserves a genuine answer, not a brush off. The objection goes, but I can think of things that are clearly impossible. I can picture flying by flapping my arms. I can picture being in two places at once. Surely the ability to think something doesn't automatically mean I can have it. That's a fair challenge, and the answer reveals something profound about the nature of genuine thought. There's a real difference between idly picturing something and genuinely thinking it, actually conceiving it as a reality you could step into. You can sketch a mental cartoon of flapping your arms and rising off the ground, but can you truly conceive it? Can you assume it as real, feel the wind against you, feel the genuine bodily truth of it, inhabit it as fact? You can't. Something inside you already knows it isn't a real conception. It's just a picture, not a genuine possibility. Your deeper mind won't accept it, won't let you authentically feel it as true, because it doesn't belong to the order of things you're actually capable of becoming. But the life you're after, the wealth, the love, the health, the meaningful work, the freedom, notice that you can genuinely conceive these. You can feel them as real. You can step into them in your imagination, and something inside you accepts them, recognizes them, responds to them as belonging to the realm of the genuinely possible. That recognition isn't random. The desires you can genuinely conceive, that you can feel as real, inhabit as possible, assume as fact, those are precisely the ones that already belong to you. The capacity to truly conceive a thing is itself the signal that the thing is within your reach. Nature doesn't waste genuine conception on the genuinely impossible. The deeper intelligence within you doesn't let you authentically feel the reality of what you can't have. So the real test isn't whether you can form a picture, it's whether you can genuinely conceive it, whether you can inhabit the thing as real and feel something in you answer, yes, this is mine. And almost everything you actually desire passes that test, which means almost everything you actually desire is already, in the deepest sense, yours, simply waiting for you to do the work of bringing it across. I want to go a level deeper now, because there's a dimension to this that most people never reach, and this is where the real power lives. The desires that rise up in you, the genuine ones, the ones that keep returning again and again, the ones that won't leave you alone, no matter how many times you try to talk yourself out of them. These aren't arbitrary. Most people treat their desires as a kind of problem, a source of frustration, a running list of everything they don't have, generating a constant low-grade ache of dissatisfaction. They experience their desires as evidence of their own lack, proof of everything missing from their lives. But I want to offer you a completely different way of understanding what a desire actually is. A desire is a glimpse. It's a glimpse of something that already exists in the realm where all things exist before they show up, reaching back toward you, calling you forward. The desire isn't the ache of absence. It's the pull of a reality that already belongs to you, drawing you toward your own fulfillment. It's your future self, your fulfilled self, the self already in possession of the thing, reaching back through time and consciousness and saying, "Come, this is real. This is where you're headed. This is who you already are." The genuine desires living inside you aren't random wants cooked up by a dissatisfied mind. They're the shape of your own destiny, pressing against the membrane of the present moment. They're the blueprint of the life trying to express itself through you. And the very fact a desire persists, that it keeps returning, that it refuses to be silenced, that it survives every attempt to be realistic and settle for less, is itself the evidence that it's real, that it's meant, that in the deepest sense it's already accomplished and simply awaiting your arrival. You don't desire things that aren't for you. Deep desires aren't temptations or torments. They're previews. They're the felt presence of a reality that already exists, calling its rightful owner home. So stop treating your desires as a measure of your lack. Start reading them as a map of your destiny. They aren't telling you what you're missing. They're telling you where you're going. They're telling you who you already are, at the deepest level. Let me talk about the gap, because this is where most people lose their nerve. There's a gap between thinking something and having it, between the conception in the inner world and the manifestation in the outer one. And it's inside that gap that the objecting voice does its most effective work, because the gap is where the visible evidence lives. And that evidence, for a while, says no. You conceive the thing, you feel it as real, you assume it, and then you open your eyes to a world that doesn't reflect it yet. The circumstances haven't shifted. The bank balance is unchanged. The relationship hasn't appeared. The body hasn't healed. And the gap between your inner conception and your outer reality stretches out ahead of you, feeling less like a temporary delay and more like a permanent verdict. This is exactly where most people abandon the conception. They look at the gap, measure its width, and decide the thinking really was just thinking after all, that the having was never actually available, that the objecting voice was right all along. But I want you to understand what the gap actually is, because it isn't evidence against your conception. It's the necessary space where conception turns into manifestation. Every seed knows a gap. The seed gets planted, and for a while, sometimes a long while, nothing seems to happen. The soil looks exactly like it did before. No green shoot, no sign, no visible proof anything's underway. And if that seed had eyes and a doubting mind, it might stare at the unchanged soil and conclude it had failed, that growing was just a fantasy, that it should give up and accept the barren dirt as the final word. But underneath the soil, in the dark, in the gap, everything is happening. The shell is splitting, the root is pushing down. The entire intelligence of growth is at work, invisibly, in precisely the stretch of time that looks, from the surface, like nothing at all. The gap isn't the absence of creation. The gap is where creation actually does its work. It's the necessary darkness, where the conceived thing assembles the means of its own arrival. And the specific, surprising, perfectly arranged chain of circumstances that consciousness builds between an inner assumption and an outer fact is constructing itself in exactly the stretch that looks empty from where you stand. Don't measure the width of the gap and despair. Honor the gap as the workshop where your becoming actually happens. Hold your conception steady all the way through it, and trust that what's happening beneath the surface is exactly what has to happen for the thing you've thought to become the thing you have. Now let me give you the practical method, because a principle without a practice is just a pretty idea. How do you take a thought and move it across the gap into a thing? How do you actually do the work of conception so it truly crosses into manifestation? You inhabit it until it becomes natural. It isn't enough to think a thought once, brightly, and then drift back to your ordinary state. A single thought, however vivid, is just a seed dropped onto the surface of the soil. It might wash away before it ever takes root. The conception has to be planted deep, and it gets planted deep through inhabiting, through returning, again and again, to the felt reality of the thing, until it sinks below the surface of the conscious mind and takes root in the deeper mind, where all real creation happens. You do this not through force, but through repetition and feeling. You come back to the conception the way you might come back to a favorite memory, easily, warmly, without any strain. You feel your way into it. You let it grow familiar. You learn its textures and details until it stops feeling like something you're imagining and starts feeling like something you're remembering. And here's the marker you're actually looking for. The conception has crossed over from fantasy into established reality once it becomes natural, once it no longer feels like a stretch, a reach, an effortful act of imagination, but simply feels like a plain fact about your life that just hasn't shown up yet. Once you'd have to work to doubt it, rather than working to believe it. That naturalness is the sign the thought has taken root, that the seed is genuinely planted, that the conception has crossed from the surface of the wishing mind down into the depth of the creating mind. And from that depth it grows with the same inevitability that any planted seed grows into whatever it was always meant to become. Think it, feel it, inhabit it, return to it until it feels natural, and the having follows the thinking as surely as the harvest follows the seed. There's something I want to say directly to those of you whose desires feel too big, whose thoughts reach toward things so far beyond your current circumstances that even reading these words right now, part of you is whispering, "Yes, but not for me, not from where I'm standing, not with what I've got." I want to speak to you plainly. The size of your desire isn't a problem. The size of your desire is information. A big desire you can genuinely conceive isn't evidence of delusion. It's evidence of capacity. You couldn't genuinely conceive something that fell outside the range of what you're actually capable of becoming. The reach of your authentic conception is the exact measure of your possibility. Most people's poverty isn't a poverty of circumstance. It's a poverty of conception. Most people fail to get what they want because they fail to genuinely want, because they never let themselves conceive anything large enough to be worth getting. They've shrunk their thoughts to fit their circumstances, mistaking the smallness of their current situation for the actual boundary of their possibility. They've let the screen dictate the film. But you don't have to live inside the boundary of your current circumstances. Your circumstances aren't your ceiling. They're your starting point. And a starting point has nothing whatsoever to do with a destination. The only real limit on your life is the limit of what you're willing and able to genuinely conceive. So conceive more, not recklessly, genuinely. Reach toward whatever something inside you recognizes as truly yours, even if it sits far beyond where you currently stand. If you can genuinely conceive it, if you can inhabit it, and feel something inside you say yes, then it isn't too big. It's exactly the right size, the actual size of who you already are. Underneath the smallness your circumstances have temporarily convinced you to settle for. Don't shrink your thoughts to fit your conditions. Expand your conditions to match your thoughts. That's the direction the whole law runs, always from the inside out, always from conception to manifestation, always from the thought to the thing. Let me bring this all home tonight. You've been taught to think of your imagination as the least serious part of you, the part that wanders when you should be focused, the part that dreams when you should be working, the frivolous, childish, impractical faculty churning out fantasies with no bearing on the real world. And that's the exact opposite of the truth. Your imagination is the most serious thing about you. It's the creative faculty itself, the actual power by which all reality gets conceived before it's ever built. It's not separate from your life. It's the author of your life. Every condition you're currently living inside was first imagined, and every condition you'll go on to live inside is being imagined right now, whether you're doing that consciously or just letting it happen by default. So the thoughts you think aren't idle. The desires you hold aren't random. The life you can genuinely conceive isn't a taunt or a fantasy or some cruel reminder of what you'll never have. It's a blueprint. It's a promise. It's the design of a reality already yours, in the only dimension where reality is ever first made. And it's waiting, with total patience, for you to hold it steadily enough, feel it deeply enough, and inhabit it naturally enough that the outer world finally does what the outer world always eventually does: catch up. If you can think it, you can have it. Not because thinking is magic, but because thinking is the actual substance of creation. And the genuine conception of a thing is the first and most essential act in bringing it into being. So think it. Think it clearly. Think it boldly. Think it with the full seriousness of someone who understands they aren't idly daydreaming, but actively creating. And then hold it, feel it, live from it, until the thing you've thought becomes the thing you have. The reach of your thought is the reach of your life. Think well and have. Thank you for being here tonight. If this expanded something inside you, if some thought you'd been holding too small started to feel a little more possible, let it grow. Pass it along to someone who's been shrinking their dreams to fit their circumstances. Someone who needs the reminder of how much is actually available to them. Because somewhere out there, right now, someone is sitting on a thought big enough to change their entire life, too afraid to believe it could belong to them. Maybe this is what gives them permission. Until next time, this is Neville Lectures, and I will see you in the next one.